Okay.
I don't see it yet. There we go.
Yeah.
We're up. All right. I'd like to call the August 13th meeting to order. If we could all please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I think I skipped a part. Did I skip a part? Okay, good. Phew. You were all on mute and I wasn't expecting to do it by myself. So thanks for leading me on that one.
Sorry, Michelle. I usually join you.
Do we have any additions to the agenda? Debbie, what was the one you made a change last minute with part-time employment?
Jen Brooks was not part-time, 0.9. She was appointed as a full-time last year, so I took her off.
Okay, great. Thank you for that change.
You're welcome.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
I'll move. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 9th reorganizational meeting and regular meeting of July 29th, and regular meeting, sorry, and the July 29th special meeting?
Move.
I'll second.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any weird pauses is because I have traffic going by my camera, so we'll do my best with that. Consent agenda today is 3.1 through 4.1. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as recommended by the superintendent?
Move.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, Matt, for the transportation report, how do you decide what buses to replace and how does that whole process work?
It's not an exact science. I mean, the biggest driving factor is the shape of the bus that we monitor throughout the year. So every month we receive detailed reporting from the BOCE Central Maintenance Office that tracks the cost and mileage for each and every bus in our fleet. So we have a fleet average as far as the cost per mile for buses. And we monitor the buses that are costing us more on a year-to-year basis. We kind of monitor that trend. Yeah. But then also, historically, we've traded our buses in when we purchase new ones.
Okay.
So it's really a combination of the cost of the buses to, comparatively in our fleet, but also the trade-in value. So, it's not, it's not necessarily first in, first out basis.
Right.
We have
your needs play a part as well, right?
Yep, that's another big part. If we have, for example, a need for a wheelchair bus or, smaller buses based on routing, out of district routing, that all factors in. But,
okay. Now, will a year like this, where possibly a bigger bus would be a desire, would that play a part in the decision of what to replace, or?
Yes, we generally purchase in the last 5 or 6 years or so, when we've been buying 2 buses. One of them is generally a full-size bus, and then one of them is generally smaller. Like this year, one is large and one is a suburban. So really, to have a variety of buses in the fleet is helpful. We have more students that are in individual placements outside of the district, so having
Right.
suburban or van type vehicle is helpful. But we always have 3 or 4 large buses in the fleet, not necessarily for regular bus runs, but for extracurricular trips, athletics, field trips, those kind of things that allow us to put more kids on a bus. Certainly this year, a larger bus will allow us to spread out more. So,
Okay.
yeah, it's not an exact science. We don't have a replacement plan per se, but it's really a constant monitoring, and we lean heavily on Frank and his crew up at Central Maintenance on what's best.
Do we have any lemons currently, like a couple of years ago, or is that a one-time thing?
We don't now. There were 3 buses that were purchased over the span of 2 years that were, we got rid of after, I think it was 5 or 6 years. A certain type of engine that just didn't work out well for us. So, knock on wood, we're in pretty good shape right now.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
I had a question about the extracurricular balances, and I think I ask this every year, and I didn't have a chance to go back and look at notes from last year. The Skyway Fund, that's sort of an unclaimed fund at this point. Is that correct? I thought we had made a decision last year about a way to address that. Am I wrong?
No, you probably did, and you may be thinking back to the fall. I think this was one of the citations from our independent audit. The board policy states that inactive funds with authorization would be turned over to the student council. Okay. And historically, admittedly, we've been a little lax in enforcing that. There have been years in the past where certain activities or clubs just don't have activity in a certain year, and if we have a reasonable feeling that it's going to continue, we've sort of let it slide, and rather than putting $5 in it or to making a transfer just so there's activity. So yeah, the Skyway Fund's been inactive for quite a while. Okay. But there have been instances in the past too where things come up again. They're sort of they're re-energized, and somebody takes the initiative to get them going again.
Is there is that a club? Is there I don't even know what to ask, like a covenant that sort of what the Skyway Fund is for and who can use it, and a covenant's not the right word. I can't come up with the right word, but I think you understand what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there is, and I can't. There's so many clubs, and there's been so many over the years. I don't remember exactly what that is. I want to say it may be technology related.
It was definitely music based. I'm relatively sure it was music based because it was. I remember it was. I remember it was started with Craig Kachonis, or to honor Craig Kachonis, I believe. And I think it was about music. So that's why I'm wondering if.
Could be. I can look into that and report back on that.
Okay. Thanks.
Other discussion? Okay, can I have all those in favor?
Aye.
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 That brings us to participation. Again, we do have a slight lag. So we will give everybody a few minutes to be able to type into the chat window if they have questions to bring up at this time. Okay, seeing none, I think we can move on to personnel. I need a motion to approve the appointment of Deborah Reese as a probationary full-time office assistant, number 1, effective August 17th through February 16th, as recommended by the superintendent.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I need a motion to approve the appointment of Lauren Reynolds as athletic director, and Emily Freeth as assistant athletic director for the 2020-2021 school year at a 80-20 split.
I'll move.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
When did those get added to the agenda?
Tuesday.
Okay. Thank you.
Bill, can you just give us some background on how that's working? This is different, or at least I think it's different to have an assistant, or is this the same? And also, what's the state of what they'll be doing with this coming year and maybe limited sports?
Sure. So this is the same model we used last year with Lauren and Rick Hansen. The 80-20 split is Lauren is the athletic director and Emily Freeth would be the game night supervisor. So Emily would be at all home contests supervising, and Lauren would be in charge of all the scheduling, the evaluations, the ordering of supplies, equipment. So that's the 80-20 split because Lauren has a young child that she can't be at every game for. So it's the same we did last year with Rick Hansen. Rick is now retired, so Emily is willing to step into that role. The state of athletics right now is that everything is on hold until September 21st is a tentative start date. And then the State Athletic Association is looking at a compressed schedule. We'll know more as we move closer to that date. But Lauren is continuing to schedule contests, to rearrange contests, to appoint coaches. There's still work that needs to be done in the anticipation that a season may unfold.
Thanks.
Sure.
I have a question too, but I think it's more personnel related that may be better suited in executive session. I'm not really sure how that works.
Yeah, we would talk about that in exec.
Okay.
Can I ask a general question? And this is truly a curiosity question. Why are all the teachers age 0.9 and not 1.0?
Oh, we're not there yet. Hold on a second. Wait, we're on athletic director.
Sorry, you're right. I'm sorry. My fault.
Right.
I got excited.
Jen, I guess I have a question before we move to vote on this one. Jen, is your question something that would change a vote? And should we table this, or are you ready to vote and move and still ask your question in an exec session?
It potentially could.
Okay.
I don't want to be that hindrance to have to come back to take a vote, but it potentially could.
Okay.
And I don't know that I'm 100% ready to vote at this point.
All right. So then I need a motion to table the athletic director recommendation.
I'll move.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
All those in favor to table?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys.
I need a motion to approve the following part-time positions for the 2020-2021 school year. Since these staff members will continue to be employed in a part-time capacity, they require annual appointments. The people are listed. Can I have a motion?
I'll move.
A second?
Ellen, you want to start discussion?
So I do. So I want to acknowledge a second, and I think we have decided that this isn't a conflict of interest, but I feel like it should be acknowledged publicly that one of the people on that list is my spouse. So just to acknowledge that publicly, but I think we've established that it's not necessarily a conflict of interest. So, okay. So back to my question about the 0.9. I'm totally just curious.
Yeah, so it has to do with reporting to the state retirement system, our school day and the hours that they work based on a standard work day that's reported to the state retirement system is the equivalent of a 0.9 FTE.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Are these more than the typical school year with everything that's going on, or?
No.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the recommendations of the committees on special education and preschool special education.
I'll move.
I'll move. Second.
Discussion would be in executive session. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I need a motion to approve the 2019-2020 APPR implementation certification. Did I say that right? Looks funny to me. For the 2020-2021 school year and submit to SED as recommended by the superintendent.
I'll
Sorry
move.
for bumbling.
A second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 That brings us to the reopening plan update. Bill, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen, so if you give me just 1 second. So we have been receiving feedback daily from the community, faculty, and staff, and from our regional and state associates. And I wanted to share with you the survey results to date from our families that we sent out last week, that we've asked for a deadline for intent being tomorrow. We've received 470 responses. We have 571 students, so it's about an 82% respondent rate right now. So I wanted to just go through this presentation and share with you where we're at. So the first question was, after reviewing our reopening plan, do you intend to send your child to school for in-person learning following the model we've outlined? So 82.8% of our respondents will be sending their children back to HCS. 17.2% have elected to date not to send their child back in the fall. And then we asked, if you answered, I will not send my child back to school in the fall, to the last question, is your intent to commit to having your child either engage in remote learning led by our faculty and staff, or be independently homeschooled, follow the New York State Education Department guidelines? 87.4% will engage in our virtual learning provided by our faculty and staff, and 12.6% have decided to unenroll their child from HCS and go through the homeschooling process as laid out by the State Education Department.
Bill,
Yes.
what does that break down to numbers, and how does this decision, like, when do they have to finalize that decision?
So we are filing homeschool intents now. So Debbie received a number of them today that I have to approve them. They then have to submit their curriculum, and I have to approve them. And then they are bound by submitting quarterly assessments. There's a whole process for the homeschooling regulations that they then have to follow. Numbers I'll get in a minute. They're not in my screen share right now, but I can go back and share those with you.
There's 12 homeschools, Bill. I just checked.
Okay, thank you. Transportation. So we asked, do you plan on transporting your child to and from school? 63.2% have said that they will transport their own child to and from school. 19.6% plan to have their child utilize our school transportation, and 17.2% will not be sending their student back to school at HCS for transportation purposes.
Is that bus use significantly different than normal? Do you know?
Yes, it's considerably lower.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's a good thing for busing purposes for COVID reasons, correct?
Correct.
It is.
We can fit at most 20 to 22 kids in on one large bus.
So that will.
That can be slightly variable because students from the same household will be permitted to sit together. So if it was all singletons and everybody was in their own seat, we'd be looking at 20 to 22 based on the configuration.
And then we moved into home internet access. We asked if families had reliable internet service. 89.1% have responded that they do, and 10.9% have responded that they do not. Kevin, can you give me a number on that, please? While Kevin's looking that up, I'll move to the next slide. And then we asked, what are the obstacles to internet access? So 29.4% of our respondents have said internet service is not offered in their area.
It's 58 students don't have reliable internet.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
And then 58.8% have stated that they have so many people access the internet that their service is slow and inconsistent. For some reason, when I copied the pie chart, it didn't give me a percentage on internet services offered in our area, but we're unable to subscribe to the service. And we do not have internet in ourselves. So Kevin, can you?
Yeah, it's 6.9% in the green. It's actually 4 students.
Okay, in red?
The red is 5.2%, and that's 3 students.
Thank you.
Yep.
So those are our survey results to date. We will follow this up with phone calls to each family that has not responded. I'm going to move into the next slide, which is our reopening timeline. Does everybody see this?
Not yet, Bill.
Does everybody have the timeline now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we put together this timeline of events coming up that I think will be helpful. It's a little infographic that we'll share on our website. So tomorrow, as I said, is our deadline for parent intent. We are required by the governor's office to now offer parent forums. So we have set those up. A letter was sent today to all families. Our first parent forum will be the 18th from 6 to 7. We will then follow that up on the 19th from 1 to 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and then 6 to 7 that evening. So we'll have 3 parent forums, an opportunity for parents to share their thinking, to ask questions to our administrative team, and just create dialogue about our reopening plan. On the 20th, from 12 to 1, we'll have our faculty and staff forum. I've invited Eric Feist from the Department of Health. He's the director of the Madison County Department of Health. He'll be joining us on that phone call to answer questions that relate to testing and contact tracing. I'm trying to rearrange his schedule to also participate in one of our parent nights as well. On the 21st, our cohorts will be announced. On September 2nd, 3rd, 8th, and 9th will be our faculty and staff conference days. And on September 10th, we will welcome our students back. It will be elementary cohort A and our middle school students. Just a little infographic on our timeline.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. Would cohort B on high school also start remotely on the 10th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Can you add that into that slide before you put it up on the website?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Also on our website, the governor, in his latest executive order, he has required schools to put information on testing and contact tracing. So that is now on the front page of our website for families to have access to. Hopefully that'll answer some questions in regards to testing and contact tracing. And through our feedback, there's 2 changes to our reopening plan that are being proposed from the task force teams. One that has an impact on our middle school that I'll have Mark share with you, and then one for our high needs special education students that Kevin will then share with you. So I'll turn it over to Mark, if you will, please, Mark.
Hi, everybody. So after the opening or the board meeting where we presented the opening plan, I received some feedback with concerns about the transition between high school and middle school. And so high school has approximately 175 students, middle school has approximately 150 students. And there were concerns with the transition going from Tuesday to Wednesday and not enough time for proper cleaning. So that's how it kind of started the conversation of what we were doing with Wednesday. And so I surveyed the secondary faculty and staff, and they agreed that an extra day of cleaning would be a preferred choice. And then we started looking at what Wednesday could look like. So we brought the task force together and brainstormed some different ideas. And as a result of talking about Wednesday as possibly the school being completely empty for cleaning, we found that there are other benefits to Wednesday being completely online as well. So for example, it allowed teachers to still check in with their students online. They'll be checking in with all of their classes. It allows students to have more time to work on whatever assignments they have. It'll provide students time who are struggling to seek help from their teachers and counselors. It adheres to our commitment to moderate the screen time that our students have. In our plan, we did have a day that was going to be completely online for every period. That would be, potentially a student strapped to a computer from 8 in the morning till 2:45 in the evening, which we didn't think was a positive way to educate our children. It provides teachers times to reach out to individual students and their families. So in the spring, we found that this was a very high time consuming process of reaching out to families that during the online portions maybe the students weren't as engaged or were having problems with Wi-Fi, having problems with the technology. So it'll provide time for that. It'll provide time for teachers to communicate student needs with the special education teachers and counselors. Can have more targeted interventions for those students. It'll allow teachers to handle other needs that come up, troubleshooting different technology, contacting Chris for different ideas on delivery of the synchronous work that they're doing or any of the asynchronous work that they're doing on the online days. It also creates something that we found very valuable in the spring, which would be team meetings. So time for secondary team meetings to be able to talk about shared students and what we're seeing and what's working, what's not working, how can we work together better with our students. So all of those came out as well. So the change would be initially high school was going to be in Monday, Tuesday in person, and online Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The change now is that high school would be in Monday, Tuesday.
Middle school.
Monday, Tuesday, high school would be in Monday, Tuesday.
Yep.
Wednesday, everybody would be online. Then Thursday, Friday, middle school would be in person.
So one of the big goals is to have no children and limited staff on campus on Wednesdays for the purpose of proper cleaning. Is that correct?
That was the initial thoughts of getting middle school out of the building, and then the additional benefits that I listed as well. But yes, there would be no students and limited staff in the building.
Students or children?
Students, children, yeah.
Okay.
Travis, I will be having discussions with CNS in regards to following our schedule as well. Any other questions for Mark before I turn it over to Kevin? Kevin, if you can share the task force and your thinking as far as a change in the special ed delivery of services.
Sorry, I do have one. Are the middle school parents getting a notice on this specifically just to them? Just so that they see that change?
So Bill and I talked earlier today, and as soon as everyone's okay with it, we're going to get the change on the actual opening document and then spread the word out. We talked maybe a robocall or individual contact to the middle school families.
Great, thanks.
You ready for me, Bill?
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin. Thank you.
Okay. So mine isn't necessarily a change, I guess. It is sort of a change, but we've been really working since we started making plans for how we would reopen on how we would get our highest need students here every day, regardless of a hybrid or in person. We wanted to get our students that have our highest needs here on a daily basis. So the question that I've been asked a few times is, well, why would we do that? Why would these students and not other students be privileged to that extra time here at school? And so the reason is that our highest need students have, from our experience, have had difficulty in the virtual learning experience. It's very hard for them to attune to a screen, to follow directions on a screen, and they perform much better face to face. Additionally, our highest needs students have special education law requirements that we have to meet to the best of our abilities, and so we want to get those kids here who have lots of services to have those services face to face. So the next question that we had to answer was, well, how do you determine who's a high need student and who's not a high need student? And so the only clear way to do that was to use the classification of special class. So our special class students who have that classification, those are the students who are in the most restrictive environment. Those are students that are getting the most services and have a classification or a program classification of special class. So that encompasses about 28, not exactly 28 of our students. And those students we're going to bring in here every day. So that they can get those services that they need.
Wednesday included?
No, I'm sorry. So the 4 days were open. Good question. So in the elementary, in the middle school, and the high school, it looks a little bit different. And it was a challenge to do this, and that's why it's taken a while. We're a small school district, and we don't have extra resources, meaning extra people that can just devote themselves to special class. Our special education teachers who teach special class also teach resource and consultant teacher direct and indirect, and they have other services that they're providing for their students throughout the day. So it presented a bit of a challenge for us in order to make that happen. But so in the elementary, our special class students And all of our special ed students will come on A day. So they will be here on A day. And then, so that's Monday and Thursday for a full day, normal day for those kids and all the kids that are here, normal day. And then on B day, we are able to devote some of our special education teachers to just commit themselves to special classes on those days for a half a day. So that would meet all of the special class requirements and services that those students need, and they would be able to get that face-to-face. So they would have a full day Monday, Thursday, and a half day in the morning on Tuesday and Friday. And then again, no one would be here on Wednesday. In the middle school and the high school, we were able to get our special class students in the middle school, high school here to attend full days on all 4 days. The way that we're able to do that in high school and at the elementary is high school, middle school students with special class services, when they don't have special class services, they're in a general education setting. Those students can go either to an SLC room or one of our satellite rooms where they can work with an adult on their general education classes remotely, instead of going home and working remotely by themselves at times. They'll have that extra adult support here, either in an SLC or a study hall setting or a satellite room setting. So that gives those students not only all of the services that to meet their IEPs, but it also gives them some additional help in their general ed classes with having an adult in the room while they're working remotely, and gives them Wi-Fi and a device and all those things that sometimes not all those students have. So it does help by having these students here every day. It also helps them to get their related services. So their speech, OT, PT, those sorts of things, they'll be able to have face-to-face as well. Our other special education students who don't meet the criteria of special class, we will still provide face-to-face services when they are here, and then remote services when they are not here.
Any questions for Kevin?
Yeah, Kevin. So if as we go through this year, if we see there are other kids who happen to have needs and could really benefit from this type of an environment, are we maxed out on this to where we're going to have to stick to the students that have the certain classification, or is there capacity that maybe we could, if we see some real benefit for certain kids, transition some kids into that?
Yeah, it's a couple different answers for you. The first part is yes, there's room for more kids to be added to this. This is 11 kids in the middle school, high school, and 17 kids in the elementary. We have the room, and those are kids spread out through different grades. So there's definitely room to do that. And they're not all working with the same teacher, so they're even divided. Those numbers are divided more. So we have the room. The tricky part would be, we're saying students with special class as their program on their IEP. So if we had a student that was really struggling, a program review would be in order, and we would have a special education committee meeting, and that change could be made at the committee meeting. We wouldn't be able to just say, this student is struggling, let's bring them in. There's special ed law that only students with special class certification or special class program can be in a special class. We can't bring a gen ed or a resource student into a special class because, and maybe I should have described this a little better. Special class supplants the general education for that student. So if a student has special class math, they don't get math in the general ed class ever. They get their math in a special class in a small group setting with a specially designed education and a specialized teacher. So you can't bring a student of resource who gets their math in the general ed class. So yes and yes, we do have room, and yes, we could bring in more students, but it would require program review, which we could do.
But it would have to be kind of a complete package. It wouldn't be
right.
So-and-so would benefit from a little bit more guidance type of thing.
Yeah. And maybe we could do that in a different capacity, not through this what I've described. That's a good point, Corey. I mean, maybe if we've got an extra person or a resource somewhere we find along the way here, we have students that are struggling, we might be able to support them. I know that one of the teachers emailed me today with a really good idea about supporting students who are struggling with our aides and coaching up some of our aides to kind of not necessarily teach, but to help them with homework or to help them read with them, things that aren't necessarily instruction. So I thought that was a good idea, but I think we definitely could do some supports. Unfortunately for this, the big question of who's special class, who's a high needs student, we have to depend on a class program label to do that. Otherwise, is this person high needs, and is this person high needs, and is this person high needs? You can make the case that all of our students have a high need to some degree, and we need, and we wouldn't be able to safely have all those students here. I mean, we looked into bringing all of our special education students here. We just don't have the resources to do that every day or the 4 days. So we settled on special class.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Mark. Any other questions?
I have a question for all of you, but Michelle, if you've got something, go ahead.
No, you can go first.
So I have two questions. The first one is kind of related to what we were just talking about. But as families start to see needs that their kids are going to have, or currently they already know, but they're very specific. I mean, we have a lot of these forums. We've talked about this a little bit, but we have these forums where people can come and ask general questions, but maybe they have very specific, highly specific questions to ask that don't really fit into a public setting, either for sensitivity or just it doesn't make sense to ask a very specific question like that. What's a family's best resource where would they go with that question first? Who's the point person they should look to?
So it's very specific. If it's an elementary need, that's a general education setting, they would reach out to Heather in the elementary principal's office. If it's a secondary specific question, they would reach out to Mark in the secondary principal's office. If it's a general special education question, they would reach out to Kevin as the director of special ed. So those specific questions should go to those three building leaders. If it's transportation, if it's cafeteria, that would go to Matt in the business office, and then any district level questions, obviously, to me. Technology questions would go to Chris in the technology office. So that's our kind of our communication protocol. Points of contact who they should reach out to, and we can certainly put that on our website if that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be. And then, so I'm sure you've already started to field questions already, but just so people here might be encouraged, you're ready now to receive those types of questions from people. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And Corey, I would just add to that, in folks listening right now, we want people to feel comfortable to call. If somehow somebody gets me and they have a question that is suited for Heather, then we'll make sure they get to Heather. The six of us are in constant contact most days with each other most of the days. So we want people to feel comfortable calling. We'll certainly get them to where they need to be.
And I would just add publicly, with our capital project right now, our phone system has been in and out, and we've kind of been supplanted into different areas of the building. So please be patient. If you can't get through to one person, try another person, and we'll get you to the right person that you want to talk to.
So, Corey, thank you for that question. And I also would just highly encourage people to reach out individually with those questions. I love having a phone conversation. So if they can call the elementary office, that is usually, a great way to communicate. There's so many individual questions at this point in time. So otherwise you can also email, but, I'm going to encourage, especially during the next 2 weeks, to call and talk with me in person so we can, iron out some of the wrinkles, because there are a lot of wrinkles at this point, but.
Mm-hmm. And as far as secondary goes, I don't have an office right now. I'm in the elementary library. So email would probably be the best way currently to contact me.
And then thinking about the timeline you showed us, is there, at what point do you think we'll be able to get some more specific feedback from teachers? I'm thinking especially about, or maybe even from all of you as administrators, about the pedagogy of how classrooms are going to look for students, either remote or in person. When can families expect to start to see some more details about what exactly is going to go on? How is that going to look? I think a lot of people are a little wary of how things went in the spring, but I think we all know that was the term's been used, crisis teaching. So it's, teachers being asked to do something completely different without a lot of time to prep. And I'm sure our teachers have been hard at work over the summer getting ready for this inevitable shift in the way they teach. And so I'm wondering how soon we can get people connected with their teachers, or even with you as administrators, to get a better sense of what their families are going to be facing this coming year.
So I'd like to address that first. So we are in the works of really hard at work at putting those pieces together. So one of the things that we did today is I met with a PE teacher in the elementary, and we really started taking a look at the changes to the PE program and some specifics of what that would look like. So had a great brainstorming session and really putting those pieces into place. Additionally, with the reading and writing workshop, there are some resources that we have been able to take a look at and providing some virtual mini lessons. And a lot of teachers have reviewed that also. And that looks like, we're interested in purchasing those materials, taking a look at providing some resources along those lines. So that would be somewhat of a flipped classroom model. And also, we have really started to take a look at some of the resources from the Reading Writing Institute in terms of the scope and sequence that they're suggesting for this year, specifically based on what happened in the spring. So those resources have also gone out to teachers as well. We also are hard at work. There's 2 teachers that have been doing a summer curriculum project this week. We've met regarding the science standards and looking for some ways to implement some of the science lessons in a more virtual model. And they're also going to lead some professional development in terms of science for us at the beginning of the year as well. Other things that we've been looking at is prioritizing standards. So I reached out to a colleague in Oneida to take a look at some of the work that they've done with prioritizing the ELA standards. And there, as our math program has some prioritized math standards as well, so that we can really know exactly what we need to focus on this year. So honestly, teachers have been so hard at work this summer. It's kind of been a nonstop amount of communication. And I'm so happy that this week has been a curriculum week. So finally, we're talking about the things that we all love. And it's also really boosted our morale to talk curriculum. So I can't tell you how many people are saying to me, it is so nice to talk about lessons and talk about teaching in that way. So I think teachers are working on it a lot behind the scenes, and we're putting those pieces together in a virtual manner through Google Docs and meetings. And we hope that the 4 superintendent days will really help to solidify those curriculum pieces. So to be continued, but it's brewing, and we're really starting to kind of ramp up some of those and get some of those answers to those questions.
Thanks.
Yeah, and to add to that with the secondary, I think once the schedule gets out and people can kind of see, what the week is going to look like. When am I in person? When am I online synchronously? When am I doing asynchronous work? And then, our task force has been meeting as well. Talking about a lot of things that Heather was referring to. Our MORIC has put together a great selection of training this summer that many of our teachers have taken advantage of, looking at flipped classroom, blended learning styles, and different ways that they can use Google Classroom to the best of its ability. So there's been a lot of talk in the secondary with Google Classroom, how can we create certain norms to make it more navigable for everyone, as far as if you're going from math class to social studies to science, and what are the best practices surrounding that in the delivery of instruction. So a lot of conversations are happening.
Yeah, I think it'd just be helpful for a lot of people to, as soon as possible, get a chance to learn about that and to see what their kids are going to be going through, what the students are going to be experiencing, and as you noticed, all this that people are learning. For a lot of parents, this is the first time that they're going to be dealing with a lot of this type of education. How they're supporting their kids is going to be, there's going to be a lot more expected of families as well. So getting them trained up and on board and maybe paired with other parents who have experience will be really helpful. And I'd like to see that happening as soon as possible for people to start getting prepared. Thanks.
My only
Just to continue.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Michelle. Just to continue a little bit with what Corey said, I was having a conversation with a parent not that long ago, and they were stating how they wanted to do some training about some of the platforms they're going to be using, and had said, yeah, I've been reading up a little on Schoology and doing this and that. And so I agree with Corey. It would be nice to get some notification out. I know that we're talking about going to Google Classroom so that parents aren't focusing efforts in areas that aren't going to be utilized. And I know that there's been some postings on Schoology, which is great because that's what the kids are using, but it would be nice to start them sooner than later utilizing those platforms that they're going to be using. And again, getting some training materials and things out regarding Google Classroom and get them away from Schoology a little bit if that's the direction that we plan to go in.
Chris, I don't know if you want to talk to that a bit.
Sure. So in the we were pretty careful in the reopening plan not to mention Schoology at all. So I'm hoping that we're communicating that that the transition is happening. And I also have put in. I hope to have synchronous and asynchronous trainings with specifically for parents when it comes to Google Classroom and Seesaw. And those will probably be happening at the end of next week after I have gone through the specific training for the teachers. I also have created, there's a technology section to our COVID website that includes a lot of sort of do-it-yourself trainings on all of the platforms that we're using. So I would encourage anybody that's listening to go there to that section. You can find the COVID-19 tab at the top of our website, and then the technology tab from there. And there's lots of sort of do-it-yourself stuff. But I do want to hold sessions where I train parents as well.
Chris, I just went to the technology page. There's a technology checkout request form.
Right now that button doesn't do anything.
Okay.
It's just a marker. But that will do something eventually. Our plan is somewhat different when it comes to technology this time around. Just to make sure everything is standardized, every kid is going to have a district device. When they're in the building and when they're out of the building, they're going to have the same device. We're going to get into the habit of when you're in school on your days, you're using that device. And then when you go home, you take it with you because we don't know if we'll ever have to close at a moment's notice. But if kids are able to get into that routine, we train them about expectations for those devices. I think that that's going to work really well for us. Anything that needs to be pushed out to them, I can do that and know that they're getting it. I can monitor what's happening and keep them safe. So that's different than it was when we closed in the emergency situation where, people got the device if they requested it or if they said they needed it. This time, everybody's going to have it.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And just one more comment on that. I hope you all know that this is, I think we all recognize that the task that's being asked of you is too big for our school to handle alone. So when you're thinking about training and helping parents, maybe it's more about finding some other parent or other family liaisons who could be, for people who need more hands-on one-on-one help. Maybe they could have somebody that they know or another family that has more experience with these types of things to help guide them along. I don't think this is something that the school is going to be able to do all on its own. I think we really are going to need to pull together as a community. And I also have a lot of faith that this is a community that can do it, that we have the people who are willing and able. And if we can provide the structure for that to happen and those connections to be made, that we will be able to see a lot of those burdens that I think weigh down on a lot of you right now be alleviated as much as possible, so that you can focus on the other bigger picture items.
I've got a quick question. I'm not sure exactly who it should go to. How will the rollout of the next gen standards be affected this year, or won't they?
They will be infused into our curriculum. Our teachers have done a lot of work before our closure, infusing the next gen standards into their curriculum. So they will just be embedded into their everyday teaching.
Okay. Thank you.
Travis, I can also just kind of let you know that the state has released in April, they revised the rollout so that in spring 2022, for ELA will be the first administration of the state tests. So they have adjusted that.
Okay.
For grades 3 through 8, that is. And then let me just take a look for math. They've revised it to spring 2022 as well for grades 3 through 8. So they did adjust it based on this last year's closure somewhat.
Okay. And then the last question, I think I kind of know how it's going to work, but for any parents that have a question, maybe this is a good one for you, Heather. How will AIS services be handled this year?
So AIS services will be built into the schedule that for an A cohort and a B cohort. So those are remaining as they traditionally have been.
Very good.
Travis, I would just add to that too that I'm developing an expectation plan for all of our AAS student or teachers. But it's more or less when you're here, it's a normal schedule. If you're here on an A day, you have a regular AAS services like you normally would. And then on the remote days, we'll have to kind of outline the expectations for everyone and what happens on those remote days. Just like last year, we don't want to have a full day of online learning for kids. And I know like the AS teachers last year did a lot of check-in kind of reading assignment type of things too, where you're not necessarily on for half an hour online with the AS teacher. Is that right, Heather?
Yes. Yeah.
Will those teachers be pushing into classes as well, or online, I should say?
Perhaps.
So I would, so as we're building the schedule, so we're kind of getting more and more detail. So unfortunately, and as a former reading teacher, I've kind of left them to last, so I feel a little bit bad. But so, I mean, I don't have specific details at this point.
I'm not asking for that. Just sure, a lot of people are kind of wondering what it look like this year, because obviously it's such an important part of their education.
I also think when we come back to school, a really important part of that is assessments. So once we have the assessments, then we'll know some numbers, and then we can build a program that really matches that.
Sounds good. I think everything looks good. Thanks everyone for all the hard work you've put in this whole time.
I'm going to jump in for my question, or kind of a comment. The only thing that I'm worried about when it comes to this plan is I don't know if we've said to parents, the 82%, I believe the number was, that said they're going to send their kids back to school, that we kind of need that to be a long-term commitment, because if people decide week 2, no, I'm going to bring my kid home, and week 4, yep, I'm going to send them back to school, that's really going to be difficult on how we develop and how we push out education. So I think we need to figure out some way to make sure that people understand that we need the big change of changing from in-person to online needs to be a district-wide decision as opposed to individual families, to ensure that we don't have class sizes changing on a continual basis. I don't know how we do that necessarily, but it is something that the only thing that I'm really worried about is the fact that right now I don't think there's been anything that said, if you're sending your child to school, you need to commit to X.
I guess for me, I guess for me, I would worry more about people feeling pressure to send kids to school when they might have some kind of a sickness, or they might have, and maybe it's even just a health issue that they don't really want to disclose necessarily for privacy concerns, right? So for me, I think we need to be really flexible in letting people make decisions that are best for their families in the moment, that we can't always understand, and understand that we need to have long-term planning. But I think we're going to have to be showing as much flexibility and compassion with students and families as we can at this time.
I think for general sickness, yes, or for thinking that something's up, I agree. But just my kid doesn't feel like going to school today, or we're going to do remote learning. We're going to do remote learning because we feel like going on vacation to grandma's house and we're going to do it there. Like we need a little bit of understanding from families that change in the numbers could really affect how things work in the school. So again, I don't want it to be that you can't change, because I might think, oh, I shouldn't send my kids to school. He's got a slight fever today, or he just has been off and I need to make sure that he's not getting anybody sick or something to that effect. But I'm a little bit worried about the back and forth, and hoping that there's not a wishy-washy back and forth, I guess.
Michelle, strictly from a facility standpoint, the initial planning when we were considering our capacity strictly from facilities was the assumption that everybody would come. So with 80, 90 kids, whatever it ends up being, who reply to this survey that they will not be sending their kids, it's really widespread across all grade levels. So if in week 2, all of those parents decide they're going to send those kids to school, I don't think it's going to have a severe impact and not allow us to operate in certain classrooms or offer certain things. So from that standpoint, I don't think it's going to be problematic.
Good.
Now, if students, the 85% that say they're sending kids, withdraw their children and decide if like Corey said, we may have something that arises for that family. Hopefully, I think the intent is that the remote component will be in place already, and they will just slide, and it'll just simply be a shift of the student population. So I don't know if that makes you feel any better, but I think
it does. I mean, I guess you guys have planned for it already, so that helps my mindset. I think it just is important to make sure that we're comfortable if those numbers change, and that we're not going to be scrambling the last minute because of changes.
And I think we need to remain fluid. When we rolled out our reopening plan, we said that it would be a fluid process, and this discussion about some changes is fluid. And I know some schools are asking their parents to lock in for the first quarter, and that's created some anxiety with some families and some conflict within some districts. So I think, the intent of the survey was to get an idea of how we can cohort to begin with. And now we know from a capacity standpoint that we have some flexibility, that we should remain fluid and allow families that opportunity to make decisions. if something arises that they have to change what their model of instruction is.
And
is there a point that if X percentage are online that we stop that in person? Like, is there a point where that's decided and something, I don't need a percentage yet, but is that something that has been thought of? And
we have had initial discussions about that. If a certain percentage, of our families decide that they're going to stay online, then it would be unrealistic to have both in person and online. So we would have to make that decision as an administrative team, as a faculty and staff, and then present that to you as a board.
Okay. I guess that helps my thought. Thank you.
And I think all the hard work you guys are doing and will be doing will help ease parents when this whole process begins too.
Thank you. Are there any other?
Go ahead,
Michelle.
I was just going to say, are there any other questions on the reopening plan?
I don't think so. It sounds to me like you have designed a very resilient, flexible plan that if tomorrow everybody decided they wanted to come, this plan will accommodate that. And if the next day it needs to slide to virtual only, it's built to flex to that. And that's remarkable. Thank you.
Yeah, the task force teams, led by Heather, Mark, Kevin, Chris, Matt, that was the whole design of this model moving forward, was that we could transition very quickly to either direction.
Bill, as far as administrators' updates, are there specific things that we're updating, or is that really just what we just went through? I just don't want to make somebody take time if it's covering what we've just gone over.
It's really what we just went through, Michelle. We can give you a capital project update, and I know Matt may give an update on the audit, our initial meeting from yesterday, but the administrator reports were really the exercise that we just went through.
All right, so with that said, capital report is on there. I don't see the other part that you just mentioned, the budget. So Matt, I guess you'll be the only one I call on for that. And if you want to combine your two into one, we can move capital projects up so that you can just have the floor.
Sure.
Thank you. Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I'm going to present my screen again to give you a status report. Does everybody have this?
Yes.
Okay. So we had a job meeting yesterday, and the project is moving along very nicely, as it has been since the beginning. Roofing, we're at 80% completion. Boiler room equipment, we're at 85% completion. And HVAC and ductwork, we're at 95% completion. Some major accomplishments in the last month have been our hot water tanker installation and piping are complete. Exterior masonry is complete. Our exterior louver openings with masonry infill are complete. Our steel frame openings for our HVAC equipment at the roof is complete. The new ceiling lighting in the first and second floor classrooms and corridors is complete. New ceilings in the second floor classrooms and corridors are complete. So anything has not been completed. There are no items that have not been completed for this period. Next planned activities are to
Bill,
install.
can I stop you right there real quick?
Sure can.
Can you help out the colorblind guy that can't really distinguish green, yellow, and red?
Sure.
Are they all on track and expected to remain in green?
Yes, they are all green, Travis. They're all on track and expected to remain on track.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Big things coming up, fin tube installation in the classrooms and offices, 99% complete and will continue. And if you've gone by the school recently, you'll see a big excavator out front with our masonry that looks like graffiti that says remove. So they will start probably early next week demolishing that masonry and starting prep work for our new exterior marquee with an anticipated completion of the base for the marquee no earlier than September 21st. So everything interior and with the roofing is on track and moving forward, and that's been our focus. The marquee installation, we have told them to not make that a priority at this point and worry about getting the building ready to welcome faculty and staff and students. And then they'll start working on the exterior marquee next week, as I said. The actual marquee is in production offsite, working on the graphics and the display for that. So the building project has gone very smooth, on budget, and we're very happy with where we're at right now. There's a lot of work to be done in the next 2 weeks, but we were told yesterday that we're looking at a completion date of the 28th of August, which we had put in our initial plans and budgeted for, and we're on track to have completion on the 28th of August.
What's that mean for teachers getting back in their classrooms? Can they get in before the 28th?
Yes. So the second floor in the secondary, we're hoping to allow teachers back in there next week at some point. The elementary classrooms, right now that they have not had construction, but normal maintenance, cleaning, waxing of the floors. So we're hoping to be able to open up some classrooms next week as well to start allowing teachers to come back in. Matt, I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
Nope, that's good.
Okay, if you want to talk about the audit process.
Sure, I just have a couple of quick announcements. One, Michelle, Bill, and myself had our entry meeting, kickoff meeting, if you will, yesterday with representatives from the Office of the State Comptroller. We were notified about a month ago that we were selected for an audit. The Comptroller's Office conducts audits not only of school districts, but all of the municipalities in New York. Their current initiative is to get out to school districts every 7 years, roughly. Our last audit was early in 2016, so we're a little ahead of schedule, I guess, with this 7-year cycle. Prior to that, it was longer than 7 years. So we've been through this before. Michelle, it was her first experience with this as the board president. We have already started to provide them data. They will be reaching out and meeting with key personnel for certain functions. It will be a little different this time around. Most of the work will be done remotely. Most of the data and documents will be shared electronically. So this is really the last that you'll hear about it, probably until its conclusion. The review itself is confidential, but there'll be a lengthy report afterward, and likely some corrective action. So I just wanted to let you know that we did have our initial meeting yesterday. It went well, and we're underway. So one other thing I want to share with you, and this is something that we certainly will make public, but this was something that we really hemmed and hawed on quite a bit. With our upcoming tax collection season, historically at HCS, we have allowed for in-person payment of property taxes to Debbie in the superintendent's office. Varying hours. We have extended hours the first week of tax collection, then also the last week, but typically Tuesday through Thursday, 3 to 4, with extended hours on Wednesday. In speaking with neighboring districts, the other neighboring districts that also allow for in-person payment of taxes, we have made the very difficult decision to suspend that for this year, and we will not allow people to come in and pay their taxes in person. Knowing full well that this will not sit well with many people. Frankly, it's not sitting well with us either. It really is at times a nice time to catch up with community members that otherwise don't get into the building. But we felt, especially with the beginning of tax season being the first week of school, we really should not be permitting that type of people coming into not that type of people, that number of people coming into the building. They would, based on our plan, they'd be subject to temperature screenings and everything that any visitor would be subject to. And the other reason, with the collection time being from 3 to 4 on Tuesday through Thursday, we anticipate 2:30 to 4 o'clock being a very busy time here at school. Certainly in September, the tax collection season is only basically the first 2 months of the school year. So, we are going to be feeling things out as we navigate this. So, we did release our series of required legal notices with collection information. The first one was published today with the typical in-person dates and times on there. We will be revising our second and third legal notice to reflect that we will not be allowing in-person payment of taxes. So also the tax bills that go out will have, where it usually has the hours of operation to come in and see Debbie, we will also revise that to show that there will be no in-person payment of taxes. So I think it's important to know we will certainly get it out publicly. It'll be in the legal notices, but certainly if anybody is approached, we hope that people are understanding, and that was our reasoning. So I don't know if you have any questions or comments on that, but that was a decision that we just recently made. That's it for me.
That superintendent's report, anything to add to anything that we've already talked about, Bill?
No, we've covered it.
You've been kind of busy. That brings us to knowledge sharing. This is something that we wanted to, as a board, keep on our agenda going forward, to talk about different opportunities that this group of 12 individuals, maybe not necessarily all the administrators, but they're welcome to join in on it as well, could talk about opportunities coming up that we're attending for learning, opportunities that we've taken advantage of, and just making sure that we share out from the things that we've done. Jen, I'm going to hold on for you for a second. You have something to share with us. I'm going to try to share my screen. So
Michelle, can I stop you for a second? Did we need to take a motion on 7.1?
No.
Okay.
Nope. I'm going to share, maybe. So I created a spreadsheet, a Google spreadsheet that I thought could be helpful. I ran it by Jen quickly, just as one set of eyes before I shared it with you guys. I thought this could be helpful, an opportunity to be able to put down the fact that I'm going to this online board policy workshop. I use this link to register. I'm the one going. Somebody else can join me. And then there's also an opportunity to submit my feedback afterwards. Once I submit my feedback, it'll all go into a spreadsheet that we'll all have access to, obviously, so that we can keep our top 5 or more takeaways from each of the opportunities that we've attended. If this is something that is not going to work for us, that is completely fine. But I thought, and I will share this with everybody afterwards, I just thought it would be good to share tonight as a beginning thing, as an opportunity to start plugging in the workshops that we get in emails that we think are of interest. We don't have to put every single workshop in, but the ones that we think are of interest or that we think that people might be interested in, even if it's not specific to ourselves, and be able to kind of keep better track of what we're doing for our learning. So thoughts?
I think it's a great start.
Yeah, Michelle, the more I thought about it, the only change I think I would make is on the Google feedback form, maybe add a part where we could add attachments. So things like I shared out today.
Can I do
in a
that?
PDF. I think so. You should be able to in a Google form.
Chris
Alright,
said
well,
yes.
If not, I can get in there and I can mess with it.
You have permission, so I haven't
I'll
done
do
that
that
before. I'm usually pretty good with my Google Forms. I'm a little ashamed to say that I don't know how to do that. Yes, I think that would be great.
Wonderful.
So I will share this out with everybody at some point soon so that we can start keeping track. And I think it'll also help us to think about all the emails that we're getting with opportunities and think about attending a few more things and then sometimes just being bombarded with some of the emails that we do get with opportunities just seems overwhelming. So there's that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jen because she has attended something. Prior to me building this, she did an attachment. So I just wanted to give her a chance to talk about what she went to.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. And I won't spend a lot of time on this. I shared it with Bill and the board, but back at the end of May, I went to a workshop led by the Yale Institute that was leading with emotional intelligence in uncertain times. And it was some of the same presenters that we listened to at the NISBA convention last year. So it was amazing. And I think what was so intriguing to me is it spent so much, yes, it focused a lot on students, but it took it a step further to let's focus on our educators as well. That if they are emotionally not healthy, and these are really stressful times for them too. So to take it that one step further of let's make sure they're okay so they can make sure that our students are okay. And basically just really realizing the educators' emotions matter, and anxiety is at an all-time high for our students, but it's also at an all-time high for our staff and for our teachers as well. And to really recognize that. And again, I share this with Bill, hoping that maybe he would share it out with some of the administrators. There's some really great data in here and some polls that they did. And the biggest thing too that it stated is, just try to have the strongest leadership as possible and really use this opportunity to make sure that your governance policies are really intact and to be the best role model that you can be, but also not to be afraid to admit failure, which they spent some time on too, to be able to say, these are new times and we may not have all the answers, but we're really doing the best that we know how, the best that we think is for you and for the students, and to all kind of bear with us and give us your feedback and all kind of work together. So it was a really, really great workshop. So
great, thanks, Jen. We have overview of the goals workshop. We had a workshop as a board. I'm trying to find my document here. This past Saturday, we spent 6 hours together in the library, 6 feet apart with our masks on. And we came up with goals. So I didn't prep anybody on this, but it's kind of broken out into 5 areas. So Corey, will you read the paragraph, and then Travis, then Ellen, then Jen and I will take each of the headings from there and read them out so that we can read them as a group.
I'm going to have to find the document, so give me a sec.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to share that on the screen?
No.
Okay.
Because I'll send it an email because it goes to everybody. I guess it doesn't really matter, right? But I don't know if it was the one you sent, Corey.
Yeah, we're reading it out anyway, right? So we can share.
Okay. I don't know who has access to it, but hold on. Let me try to find this.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing.
I don't know. I just felt weird to send it.
I just found it in email. So did you get it shared? Because unfortunately, I can't see my images and my document at the same time.
I was thinking of doing a share screen.
No, I can do that. I did it the other way. Present now. A window. I have to figure out my window. Hold on a second. Oops. Let's see what happens. Tell me if it says. It's there. Okay.
Yeah, I think if you can zoom in, that'd be helpful.
Maybe. I can. Look at me. I'm getting there.
Huh? Look at you go.
How's that?
That looks better.
Okay.
Sure, I'll just read this first paragraph and maybe explain a little bit what we did. So it says, as we look ahead to the coming school year, the Hamilton Central School District Board of Education recognizes the challenges and uncertainties that face all of us. Nevertheless, we also see the need to continue to set goals and find opportunities for growth amidst the trials. In this spirit, we have worked with Superintendent Houseland to craft these district goals for the coming year in 4 key areas. While these goals recognize the immediate challenges we face during the continued pandemic, we are certain they also align with a long-term strategic plan that was written and produced by our school community. We look forward to working together to achieve these goals in the coming year and fulfilling our mission to educate every student every day. So for those who don't know the role of these district goals, first of all, we did these in our workshop, as Michelle said, but the role of these should be that these are the measurable categories by which all district goals are then set. So these goals are being shared with Bill, who's then sharing them with his team. They'll continue to set their own individual goals under each of these areas. But this is the direction we're hoping for the district to take, and this is what we're going to be measuring the success of the district against at the end of the year. And as we say in that paragraph, while some of these have a nod to the particular pandemic that we're facing and then the uncertainties right now, we really think these are getting us toward the future that we want in a long-term way as well.
Travis?
Do you want me to read the health and safety one?
Yes, please.
So then I went into health and safety. Meet New York State Education and Department of Health requirements regarding COVID-19. Develop a social emotional health plan for staff and students, including a mechanism for staff feedback and response. And last, develop a method for assessing campus security.
Do we want to discuss those more, or do you just want me to go to the next one?
No, I think you can just move on to the next one.
Okay. Instructional continuity, equity, and innovation. Provide the Board of Education with monthly reports regarding educational continuity. And I am just going to add the note that the intent of that was both continuity on the educational trajectory, but also continuity between the in-person and virtual or distance, not virtual, but distance learning. Implement strategies to,
Sorry, can I also say on that those reports would be done publicly at the board meeting, so other people listening might get some benefit out of seeing that at the board meeting as well.
Yes, thank you, Corey. Implement strategies to provide equitable opportunities as we navigate the pandemic, and create innovative opportunities for professional development, and a method for sharing the knowledge. So much as we just talked about sharing knowledge amongst ourselves, hoping that faculty and staff find ways to share their knowledge too. And it sounds like that's already started.
Great. And going into communication and community engagement, create effective channels of communication with all stakeholders and create opportunities for the community to engage with and support the school.
And for fiscal responsibility, create a fiscally responsible budget that fulfills the mission and goals of the district and pursue innovative strategies to address long-term budgetary needs. So it was a very productive 6 hours together. I thank everybody for taking the time, and especially to Scott, the district superintendent, for his time coming to Hamilton. Anything else on this? Or are we all set there? Okay. We've changed things around, so hold on one second. Regulation facilities use for COVID-19.
So our school attorney has advised us to come up with a facilities use form. As you know, if our facility was open, we have a number of outside agencies that utilize our space, and we have been advised to come up with, if we have the opportunity to open our building and we're allowing outside entities to use our building, that we should have a facilities use form that they fill out and are adhered to follow. So therefore, this draft for our regulation for our facilities use during COVID-19, when and if our building opens for outside use.
Thank you. 7.8 is regarding David McKay. He has passed away, and we as a board have sent a couple messages around just mentioning that we'd like to talk about the fact that we'd like to honor him in some way. So I thought it was important that we discuss that here in the ways that we think would be best to honor him and his service to the district. There could be.
Sorry, Michelle. Yep. I don't mean to interrupt, but can you share the story of his service to the district? So in context,
that's the important part.
Not well, because I.
Do you want me to jump in a little bit?
Because I wasn't prepared to. Yes, if you would, that'd be great, Travis. Sorry.
So, Dave was actually a neighbor of mine. Really great guy, and whenever you talk to him about HCS, you can just see his eyes light up. He's very passionate. Honestly, can't remember what and how long he taught at HCS, but he was a board member for 26 years, and that's quite an accomplishment. And he's always been very active with everything in the community, from Lions Club to Boosters Club to, I believe, Hamilton Rec, the food cupboard, you name it, he was probably involved somehow. So if we could find, well, first, we're very grateful for everything he did for our district, beyond grateful. But yes, if there's some way we can find to honor his memory, I'm sure that, I think that'd be the right thing to do.
I agree, Travis. Thank you for wrapping him up into such wonderful words.
I will jump in with this too, as we try to find a way to do it. Dave and his wife love their flowers, their flower garden. They probably spend 5 hours a day out weeding that thing. So maybe that would be a starting point of a way to honor him in a way that best reflects his personality.
Okay. I also thought that maybe we could name the professional development room after him, since that's where we hold our board meetings. That we could honor him in that way, that we would hold our meetings in his room, or name a hallway in his honor in school, or possibly plant a tree in his honor. So those were 3 ideas that came with preparing for the meeting. So I wanted us to have a few minutes to be able to talk about that and see what we thought.
Yeah, maybe that's the way to go.
Do we need to replace a tree that we just lost?
That was my thought.
Or are we not replacing the tree that we just lost?
Yeah, that was not a tree of, it was not a memorial tree in any sense.
Right.
There will be a couple others that are coming down. That was just taken down. Half of it came down on its own, but just as part of routine maintenance. But, there are memorial items all throughout the district property. So,
I would say in regards to that specific tree and its location, maybe with a future capital project that would involve the bus circle, maybe it's best not to plant a tree right there right now, especially one of meaning.
Well, I was just thinking.
I know. I thought the same thing, but then
No,
I also
no, no.
thought, well, maybe would the day come where that tree has to come out anyway? So
Do we still need more shade trees over at the playground? Or are we doing okay there?
probably depends who you ask.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it.
Okay.
I know we've added a few. I'm not sure offhand.
I feel like honoring him in a way inside is, I know trees are permanent, don't get me wrong, but they're not. Like, we had this tree that just fell. And I just worry that something happens to it outside. And I know we've honored people in that way in the past. But like the Kylie hallway, I think it's just really a symbol when you walk in the building. So I'm actually kind of leaning towards the professional development room because I think as board president for so many years that would just be a wonderful way to honor him. And if the room got moved, the name of the room could move too. The name could go with wherever that room went, so we wouldn't lose it. That's just my thoughts.
Michelle, I think you might have a good point there. The only other thing I think might be worth asking is, Debbie, did you have any interactions with Dave? If so, was he the kind of guy that wouldn't want something named after him? Some people are like that.
I don't think he'd have a problem with it, and that would be my first idea, is to name the room after him, because he was the board president for 26 years. So I think that would be the best way to honor him.
That's quite the record.
Mm-hmm.
Although having already served 26 years, I feel reticent to condemn somebody to wander the halls of the professional development room. I would be supportive of that as well.
I also really like that idea. That was my number one choice as well.
Sounds like we're all in. Is there any reason from the district perspective not to do that? Was there any other intent
be my
of
question too.
Using that room to honor anybody else, or did it not really have a?
No, I think that's very fitting in his honor.
Okay.
I think that would be a nice tribute.
Matt, do we have room in the budget for a plaque?
Or at least a sign.
See what I can scrape up.
All right.
Okay.
I think that would be very, very nice.
I know things in person are difficult right now, but I think we can think about when we unveil the room, that there's a way that we can invite his family to be a part of that, either virtually or in person, whatever is. And
I do have some
wise.
contact information for them.
Great. So I think, I'm guessing that they're not watching right now. It'd be great if they were, but Travis, since you are their neighbor, maybe it'd be a nice thing to stop by and let them know that we're talking about this, and that we'll let them know as we get closer to actually naming the room in a more meaningful manner.
I'll reach out
done.
with that. This is what we are thinking about doing, and
great.
We'll go from there. And
thanks
you,
everybody. All right. So everybody that's still watching, thank you for watching. I'm going to take a minute to get to the point to say that it's community participation time, to give you a few extra minutes to type in. So if you do have anything you'd like to add to our meeting, it's really hard to give you the 3-minute timeline since you're typing, and that probably doesn't fit anymore. But if you could please type in your questions now, that would be great. And we're going to sit here for a minute while we give people time to do that, and the awkward silence will start, I'm sure, here shortly. I wish there was a way to make it not awkward, but that's just because I don't like awkward silence, and now I'm still talking, so I'm going to mute myself and see if anybody types in. I'm grateful that there have been so many people participating in our online meetings, and thank you very much for that. Are we planning to come back out and untable the topic that we tabled tonight, or will we untable that another night? That'll determine on how the executive session and regular meeting end.
I would prefer we vote tonight
Okay.
so we can move forward.
Okay. So we will have a vote after executive session, which means, Chris, you're going to have to stick with us somehow to, or we'll have to message you when we go back live again. Great. I still haven't seen anything pop up, so I'm assuming that nobody has any comments. I thank you all again. And I need a motion to adjourn to executive session regarding particular individuals.
I'll move.
A second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, Chris, will you please stop the feed? The administrators, you do not need to return. Bill, I'm talking out of turn, but if you disagree, you can tell them they do. But do we need anybody else to join us after, except for Chris?
We do not. Nope.
Okay. And Chris,